So she comes out of a care environment and she's living in a house.
So that, but was she fostered then, or was she in a home?
It's not entirely clear. But all we know for certain is that the people who have stayed surrounding this young lady are connected with social services.
And they didn't change her name?
No.
Or did they?
No, they didn't change her
And did
name.
they abuse her, apart from the fact they denied her the treatment that she so urgently required?
Local people who met her, who have met the girl, and indeed her grandfather bumped into her in the street on one occasion, and he went to hug her, and the girl said to him, "Grandad, don't touch me, because they'll know." Now, there is so much to what these cases, and the problem is I could spend 2 hours on this one case, but we are seeing where the children are turned against their own parents. A common trick, and this is often done on fathers, is the fathers are not told when there's an opportunity to visit the child. So naturally they don't go because they don't know there's an opportunity to visit the child. Social services tell the child, or say to the child, "Where's your dad? He hasn't come. It's now 45 minutes. He's late. He hasn't come. He obviously can't be bothered with you." Right?
Apparently there are some evil people, seriously evil people out there.
We are talking absolutely evil people. And it comes down to the business that the evidence is there to show what's going on, but you've got to get through the minefield of the secret courts. And this is where, at some stages, we move through this, we'll be asking why this is happening.
Well, I've got a question here. Steve is asking, who orchestrates this and why? Well, and, hold on, Denise in Cambridgeshire says, is this more common purpose action?
Well, because of the programme tonight, we decided we're going to go for the subject of what's happening to the children. Yeah. I don't want to go into detail about common purpose, but I can say that we are increasingly suspicious of common purpose's role within the public sector, including social services, because, as I've said many times before, there's a regular tendency that when you find common purpose, you find other problems. And since on my website, cpexposed.com, we've recently flagged up that 2 serious paedophiles have been involved with common purpose, we need to watch them.
And again, I have to issue a warning that those are the opinions of my guests and not necessarily the opinions of this show or the station.
The information I've just given you is correct, because there are 2 paedophiles. We can name them because they've been in the press. One is James Rennie, who was leader of a gang in Scotland who were abusing children down to the age of months. And the other one is, at the moment, moving through the court process, but has appeared in the press in the Merseyside district.
Well, if he's not convicted, we can't discuss him, can we?
I haven't mentioned it. I'm looking after you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just on the subject of what the children actually say, I've read the.
We've read the letter from that young
the other
girl.
Little girl.
Yes.
And
which is heartbreaking.
I have in front
absolutely
of
heartbreaking.
Front of me another one which I can show the camera. This is not a problem. This is a letter that was found under the bed of 2 girls before they were taken, 6 and 10 at the time, I think. And essentially, we think it's done by the older girl. She
said, "I'm not going into care," written several times. "Dear God, please stop these
nasty social workers taking me away." And then she's written out the Lord's Prayer.
Yes. Amen.
And this is a very desperate little girl.
And then her name is crossed out, I see.
I'll tell you a little bit about the story. We had a couple where the mother had some mental issues to the extent that she was not treating the 2 girls well, neither was the grandmother. And the mother's condition deteriorated until she was self-harming, and eventually she went on to set the house on fire.
So in that instance, you would say it's a good thing to put the children in care, wouldn't
you? Well, no, because there was a perfectly capable father And the girls indeed went to live with the father, and they were very, very happy with the father. But the mother, in her state, brought social services into the process, and social services took the girls away from the mother. From the father.
On what basis?
On the basis that there was a risk of harm. And this is where you need to really understand how powerful social services are, because a social services worker can write a report in which they make, and do make, totally unsubstantiated accusations, and that evidence is then used to take the child away. Now, I know that out there are going to be a lot of social services people who are finding this very difficult to listen to, and they'll be saying, that doesn't happen in my social services unit, and it may not do. But I will say to them, I'm afraid that the evidence is overwhelming. It is happening in many units right the way across the country.
Are you saying that as far as they're concerned, the ends justify the means? And if they've decided that a child is at risk, or they need the revenue, perhaps, from having children
well, that's certainly a great incentive.
care.
If you've got a council whose budget is tight, and they know that they can make money by taking children into care.
Are we talking huge sums of money?
Well, for some of the bigger London councils, I think one of them's had about £2 million.
£2 million?
Yeah.
Just from putting children into care?
Absolutely.
What about adoption? Do they get more for adoption?
I'm not sure on that, and this is where I will happily state my limitations. There are other people who've done that sort of detail much better than I have. Where I believe that we've started to do something which other people haven't been doing is we're printing the stories in order to try and break through this secrecy.
Well, Brenda in Hull is saying just one word, monsters. And I've got to say, Brenda, I'm not going to argue with you.
Absolutely. But what is very, very worrying is that you see a template with the actions. That there's a family, an event happens, maybe it's a dispute with a neighbour. Social services get involved. They write a report. The mother or the father will say the report arrived and it was totally inaccurate. But then we've got to deal with social services, but I don't want to deal with social services. But then they get the police involved, and then we have to attend the meetings. And then there is the attempt to take the children away. Isn't
there also something that happens to a lot of these parents where they're told they need to have a psychiatric assessment?
Absolutely.
You want to describe that for me?
The case that I've mentioned with the mother self-harming, the father eventually had a psychiatric assessment written on him by a man he'd never met.
Well, he never met him even for the assessment?
No.
It was just completely fabricated?
Two girls were assessed, although they'd never had any problem, but the father was never directly in contact with the psychiatrist who wrote the assessment.
And this psychiatrist was paid a big fee, presumably?
I would imagine a very fat fee.
And, of course, if he wants more of that work, then I also imagine, and I'm not making any suppositions here, but I'm asking you the question, would you say it likely that the psychiatrist realises that what is required from him is to say what the social services who are paying his fee?
I would say it's very likely. A figure that was suggested to me for the annual value of money circulating through the family courts was £20 billion pounds.
Per annum?
Per annum.
Well, that's an incentive to do wrong, isn't it?
Yeah. And what is interesting is that it isn't just a question that the children are taken away. There's often with it the fact that the mother and father, or the man and the woman, if they're partners, are played off against each other. And there have certainly been cases where the man has been told, well, if your partner's going to keep the child, you need to split with her. So they actually break the family apart.
Okay, well, is this about money, or
No, I believe this is something different. This is to do with out-and-out social engineering.
Well, okay, so you're accusing the government of having a master plan.
I'm accusing the government of having a master plan which is actually to undermine and destroy families. And
for what end?
because ultimately, if you look at police state type regimes, they want the children free of influence of their parents so the state can claim them. And that's been going on in China, it's been going on in East Germany, it's been going on in the Soviet Union, and it was certainly going on in Nazi Germany.